strange happening this morning. Was it a dream where you see yourself standing in sort of sun-god robes on a pyramid with 1,000 naked women screaming and throwing little pickles at? No. Why am I the only person that has that dream?
Good morning, everybody. Hi, welcome. I should fade these down. Hi, good morning. That noise you hear in the background is Chip playing with everything. That's right. He's not even waiting at this point. Chip, what are you doing? Psst. What are you doing, buddy? I just started the show. He's very he needs to kick some strings around and play with some stuff, and it's a good time. So he's hi. Do you want to say hi? Come here. Nope. Hold on. Come here, you. Come here. Come here. They want to say hi. Come here, you. Come on. Hi. Yeah, they want you to say hi. They want you to say hi, Mr. Man. What are you saying hi about? What are you doing? What are you doing this fine morning? Are you okay this fine morning? Do I have to put you outside the door so you don't chew on things while I'm trying to do the show? Mr. Man, you are? Are you okay? Because I will eat you. You will be eaten live on national broadcast. It happens. You will be eaten. That's right. Yeah, you're going to get consumed. Because you're scrumptious. Yes, you are. You are scrumptious. Run for your life. Run for your life, little chipper. Run for your life. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, buddy. Good times. Okay, here up there. Thank you. Excuse you. You're trapped now. You're stuck there. Hi, good morning, everybody. I'll be with you in just one moment. I'm on cat patrol. Can't you see? Hi. Now he's attacking a wheel. All right, that's fine. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Happy Friday. Or Happy Freak Out Friday, as it is commonly known. You know, it used to be that Friday was the news dump day because you could get away with it. You could just drop a bunch of news and everybody was too busy heading home for the weekend to even deal with it. And then, you know, now everybody waits for it and it's fodder for news all weekend, which is not appropriate most of the time. Technical diffi Chip, where'd you go? He went out in the other room. Okay, he's okay. All right. We just hi everybody. Hello from Des Moines, Iowa, one of the few Democrats in a red state. Oh well, you know. That's not a fait accompli. You just got to talk to people differently. I don't get it. I don't understand this whole thing about people talking about diversity as our strength, and we have to think about diversity and diversity, and then you think everybody knows your jargon and feels the same way about it that you do. Not you in particular. I'm not talking to the person in Des Moines who just said that, but in general, there tends to be a jargonization of discourse right now, which is, for the record, not helpful. It is complexity phobic, and it digs holes where there need be none, and it creates rifts where none exist, and it creates villains where there are none, and it is silly. It's a very silly thing. Tomorrow night, I'm in Madison doing the Sexy Liberal show. I won't do an afternoon show today because I will be on a plane, so spread the word. I will be in transit. And then I'm doing my radio show from Chicago tomorrow, so I get to get my rental car tonight, crash out at the hotel, get up early, drive down to Chicago, do my show, turn right back around, drive back up to Madison, and sound check, and then do the Sexy Liberal show, and then have dinner with the Sexy Liberals afterwards or something like that. I'm guessing there'll be some sort of gathering. I hope it's not just like wine in Steph's room. Not anymore, right? She's on the wagon, so this might be This might be just a nice little gathering. Pizza and Chip. That's a good idea. At some point, I'm gonna end up having to bring Chip with me everywhere I go. Right? This is gonna be. He's not gonna be my like anxiety animal. He's gonna be your anxiety animal. So if I don't bring him with me, it's not because I need him there to pet. Although I might. At this point, I'm getting so used to having him around. I might start doing shows on the road. Go. I want my Chip. Where's my Chipple? Where's Chipple? Where's Chipple? Where is Chipple? I might end up doing that. Hi, folks. Welcome. Thanks. Gather round. It's good to see you this morning. Now, we're going to talk about, as we do over a morning beverage or hangabout, we're going to talk about what's trending. A good portion of it is god-awful this fine morning. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Today, by the way, is Jeff Goldblum's birthday. He is 69 today. And how does it? Birthdays are something I like very much. Yes. I have one every year. So, I gotta wish him a happy birthday. It's true. I'm Goldbluming. Everyone's got a Goldblum every so often. Goldblum. That's just what we'll do all day. Today is oh boy. Yes, good day to be Jeff Goldblum. Bad day to be Alec Baldwin. Many of you have heard the story already. There was an accident. I am going to shape the conversation about this differently, and this is super important, than you will see it printed anywhere else. Where they're saying, and this is sort of the quote around this, is that Alec Baldwin shot Helena Hutchins on the set of the movie Rust. He did no such thing. They were filming something. He was using a prop. The prop happened to be in the shape of a gun and have a mechanism similar to a gun without actually being a fully functioning gun. And it malfunctioned and harmed people involved. It is no different than if somebody had set an explosive charge and actors were too close to it, or someone was too close and they were harmed or killed. No one would say there were so and so put an IED on the set of a thing and blew it up. The way they're talking about it, Alec Baldwin shot someone on the set of it, is a total disregard for the reality. Like I said, this was a prop that looks and works like a gun, but is not indeed a gun. It was not being used as a gun. It was being used as a prop in a story. And if someone, it's interesting that it's not saying accidentally, even when they call it shot. Let's see, Alex Baldwin, yeah. So the Variety is stating it this way. Alec Baldwin fired prop gun that killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins, injured director. I don't know I'm sure the details will come out, but it sounds like a straight into camera or just off camera eyeline firing, meaning the gun needed to be right here, and that's where she is. Now, even when you're using a prop gun, everybody who's in downrange from even a prop gun needs to be behind plexi themselves. The lens can be open and free, but you put up a barrier for everyone else, especially if you're doing anything close to that. In the same way that there's a distance requirement for explosions or fire on set. Why this wasn't happening is anyone's guess. Yes, if we learned nothing from The Crow except heartbreak, it is one of the reasons why I love the movie The Crow. Many of you know this, but I have a poster for it that I bought a long time ago, and it's still rolled up in a tube because I find it so heartbreaking to look at the image. I love the movie, and every so often, like I think over the last 15 years, I've watched it maybe twice. Just because I love the film and I appreciate all the work that everybody did on it, and I think it's a masterful piece of art. But I can't get over how sad it is. Not just that Brandon was killed, which is sad in and of itself, but that he was engaged to be married right when they wrapped production. And there's a line in the movie where Brandon's talking to Ernie Hutchins, where because in the story, she's sexually assaulted and dies, and he dies. They throw him out a window, and he raises from the dead basically to avenge her with a broken heart, just torn to pieces. She's, interestingly enough, and this is an integral part of the story, she's beyond this world of pain. So she's sort of an angel that welcomes him at the end of this. He can't let it go. And so the haunting of The Crow is about this man's anger and rage at what happened to him and his partner, mainly what happened to her, and his needing for these people to never be able to do something like this again. And they are clearly in the story people who would do this thing again and continue to do this thing again and try to do this thing and make it even worse. But there's a scene where he visits the police officer who's kind of that Ernie Hudson plays, that's kind of on to the whole thing. And as he talked to him and he's leaving, he said, "I'm sorry what happened to you and your girlfriend." And all Brandon says is, "Yeah." And that one line, making it not thanks or something else, just yeah. Knowing what happened after that, and knowing that, in real life, he and his girlfriend were to be married, is just a haunting sadness that goes with this whole thing. And again, he was killed in an accident like this with a discharge, depending on your feelings about the triad and all that kind of stuff. And the same thing is true here. They talk about guns on set as if this is someone is shooting a gun, and they are not. These are props. These are fake guns, but because they have explosive power, Jan Michael Vincent is also one of the people who's most known for having died on set because of a prop gun, because they were playing with them on set in between takes, firing at each other, and he pointed at his own head and said, maybe this time I won't miss, ha ha ha, not realizing that the wadding comes out of that thing at a distance at the same velocity and power as a bullet. Sorry, John Eric Hexum, you're right. I beg your pardon. It was not Jan Michael Vincent. John Eric Hexum. I often mix up my three named 80s guys. Thank you for that. I appreciate that correction. Corrine, bless you. Not John Michael Vincent, Jan Michael Vincent. John Eric Hexum. Thank you. Clarification. Didn't realize I misspoke. Have misspoke. Fixed it. Thank you. He said that it was on this series where they were playing models who were also spies. And yes, John Eric Hexum. And he passed away that way. Harmed himself with one of these things. And that was not, again, the danger is in thinking of these things as guns instead of dangerous props. Thank you, Tricia, for knowing what I meant. Yes, John Eric Hexum. And in this situation, the fact that it is shaped like a gun or what have you, has nothing to do with the fact that Alec Baldwin pulled the trigger on this particular prop any more than if he hit a plunger to trigger an explosion and somebody was close to the car, anyone would say he, set off a bomb that killed people, right? The languaging around it is very important. These are props. None of this is real. This also goes to the whole like machismo about people who harm their scene partner in fight scenes. There used to be a lot more macho shit about this stuff. Steven Seagal's notorious for it. As if you're in a real fight, as if the people you're working with aren't on an equal footing with you. And I mean, he must be horrified. But there, as will come back, as will the director who was injured and who's the driver of the whole project, the producers who were involved in it, who oversee all aspects of it, and the prop department who either did not warn them or there was something else wrong with the prop itself where it went wrong. If somebody's using a faux bear trap, a fake bear trap, and they accidentally swap it with a real one, or they have a metal one and then they don't swap it for one of the scenes, somebody gets their leg cut off, no one is going to say of the actor that set the thing for the scene that they attacked their fellow actor or someone with a bear trap. You understand? I don't doubt that he's an executive producer. He's probably, any of the big dollar actors in projects like this often put their own money into stuff anyways. Yes, ask John Landis. Right. J. Michael Vincent indeed had a heart attack. Apparently Eric Stoltz did that on the set of Back to the Future. I know there was some personality stuff with him. The saddest thing about Eric Stoltz's recasting in Back to the Future, which ultimately was good for our dear friend Leah Thompson, was that the woman who was cast to play Eric Stoltz's mother, who looked much more like him, lost her job too. This is also why, as an actor, you don't fuck around with other people's livelihoods on a personality level. You drive other actors away, then they go, well, we had to get rid of this character, so everybody who played their relationship, their family member, their whatever, ends up getting kicked off the show or their storyline's diminished. That's a dick move. That's why I'm always fun to work with and a total professional. Because it's not all, even if your scene partner's an asshole, there are other actors or parts of the production that will be, and you don't have to just put up with a hostile workforce. I have in the past, but, I would not now. I now have the skills or at least the level of import in certain projects to be able to say something and not worry about my job or the people around me. So anyways, the fact that this is a prop gun is immaterial to what happened. This was an accident, a prop accident on a set that killed someone. The fact that he was the person who triggered the prop accident is not his responsibility, nor would he have any reason to believe it would be his responsibility. The phrasing on this, even as, with Variety talking about this as sort of base level as they are, is still off, and it's just terrible for Alec Baldwin. Because they were in the process of shooting a scene. Incident occurred on the set of Rust, an independent feature. It was filming in Bonanza Creek Ranch, a popular production site in Santa Fe. Hutchins, 42, was transported by helicopter to the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, where she died. Sousa, 48, was taken by ambulance. They were probably stacked behind each other. Where he received emergency treatment for his injuries, according to their office. Sheriff's office said in a statement, Hutchins and Sousa were shot when a prop firearm was discharged by Alec Baldwin, producer and actor. When Baldwin was questioned by investigators, he was in tears. Of course he was. No one was arrested because it's an accident. Baldwin's reps did not immediately respond. They're just going to wait till it's figured out. The Hutchins' death was confirmed by the Sheriff's Office and the International Cinematographers Guild, Local 600. Details are unclear at this moment. We're working to learn more, and we support a full investigation of this tragic event. It's a terrible loss, and we mourn the passing of our guild's family. Francis Fisher, one of the stars of the film, tweeted on Thursday night that Sousa told her that he is out of the hospital. That, I mean... And then something like this happens, and everybody on this was happy they got a job. Especially on an indie film. Most of the people working on an indie film are just lucky to have it, and then to have the whole thing collapse in a second. Is it the gun's fault or no fault? I mean, it's about responsibility, not fault. If it's broken, or a damaged prop, or it comes from something that was lodged in the barrel or whatever, that's ultimately the prop department and the firearms inspector's job. They usually have a firearms specialist if there's a lot of shooting. If you'll notice, in all of the John Wick films, there was never an incident like this. And maybe file that under, if you're going through hell, keep going. The idea that they know they're dealing with so many of these things that they are absolutely anal about all of, checking these things. Whereas in a movie where it's an incidental, they might have had, well, today's the day we do the shooting thing, and therefore the person is on for one day. I don't know. This will come out. There will be a wrongful death suit. Very possibly, but I don't know how far that goes. So, we have a person who was shot accidentally. I mean, even this, they're talking about it as if it's a real gun. In this part of the story, we have a person who was shot accidentally when it's not a gun; it's a prop. This is an important distinction. Even though it barks like a dog, it's a robot dog. It's not the same thing. There has to be a prop master on board, and there's usually a firearms specialist when they have shooting stuff. Also, a lot of actors, myself included, have firearms training. We go through certain things, but take after take after take, if you're handed this thing after you've gone through your initial checks, other people can get sloppy and you're not aware of it. So it's always good to make sure, and you always treat a prop gun like a real gun, because anybody who's, within 6 to 8, maybe 10 feet of a weapon like that is in danger, I hope to God you're never in a movie with one of these things on set. Oh, I've been in lots of projects where there's been guns on set and stuff. That's not the problem. I mean, again, just because there's no guns on set doesn't mean somebody doesn't, stab somebody with a fork. There's danger in every circumstance. It's an interesting experience that I've had on stage, especially because you don't get to stop down, is that I've had injuries doing stage productions that I didn't even know I was bleeding until I walked off stage at the end. Like, I at one point, there was a nail in the set that had gone through the wood. So it wasn't the head of the nail, it was the tip, and it was sticking out of the wood on this set. And as I walked by it, because I speed out of the room in this one scene, it just stuck my leg. It was straight. Didn't even scratch me. It just was a puncture. And as I walked up set, I was getting ready for my next take, and somebody else noticed I was bleeding, and there was like a hole that deep in my calf. So, easy, everybody. Good morning. Prosecutor. Who? No one in this circumstance is going to get prosecuted for manslaughter. Can we see the scar? I don't know that I have one, and I mean, it's kind of minor because it wasn't a scratch; it was a puncture. So it's a little. Was it a bullet that struck them? No, there are no bullets in prop guns. It's more than likely the wadding that goes over the powder. Or whatever it struck. So if let's say you're behind a shield of something and it's not strong enough, or the person's too close, or whatever, or the actual material that it breaks through can be the thing that does it. Anyone else would go to jail. Anyone else wouldn't be using a prop. You're not going to jail for this. It's an accident. It's silly. You are talking out of your ass. Didn't the guy who shot Brandon get depressed and couldn't forgive himself even though it was an accident? Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Liberals can kill people and get away with it? I'm sorry. I see. That's what that's about. I see. Right. I don't think more Trump says something horrible about this. Oh, probably by this afternoon. By the way, thanks to the trolls that are even showing up for the morning show now. Yeah, we appreciate you being here because every time you type something, it raises our engagement quotient. So that helps a lot. I think technically speaking, if you want someone to go to jail for an accident that's not their fault, that would be cruel and unusual punishment on your part, which I think is anti-constitutional. I don't know how to put up with these criticisms, but thank you. All right, hold on. Kitten attack. What happened? Who's that? What'd you do? Where'd you go? Oh my gosh. What are you doing? Silly boy. Were you trying to climb this? Hi. Come here. Come here, you. Come here. Come here. What are you doing? You okay? Are you okay? He knocked over the barrier between the... Hey, are you okay? Are you okay, buddy? He scared himself. He knocked over something in the other room and... You okay, buddy? You're all right? Yeah? You okay? You're fine? Want to go down and play now? Okay, Licks, that's very sweet. I love you too. Here, hop down. Here, hop in the box. He never wants to sit in the box. I put a box there so he could have a good sit. He was scared of himself for a second, and now he's like, Bow! I have a chip on my shoulder. It's true. So, anyways, these kind of things happen very rarely. Yeah, detectives are investigating how and what kind of projectile was discharged, if at all, by the way. There's also another, they found out what came out of the gun. No, they don't know yet. And the problem is, wadding might have come out of the gun, but with enough force to knock something else into the person. That's the problem with these things. The other thing is, I personally think these days, there is no reason to use a standard prop gun for anything except in even in circumstances where you're using some sort of traditional weapon where there's really no electrical version of it. You can build fake guns that can discharge and have the rail go back on them as a prop. And more those need to be the case. As a matter of fact, if anybody is in the world of engineering, our dear friend Rob Glenn could probably do this. That making prop guns that look as though a round is being chambered or can kick one out and have just a muzzle flash come out of the front of it in another form that doesn't come out in the same way that a gun does, because basically that's what they're using right now is a gun with blanks. There is no reason in our current time why that would be necessary. And all muzzle flash could be CGI anyways. Exactly. And again, this is what happens. And on bigger films, they are doing that. If you look at the muzzle, I have an entire, let's see. I don't know if it's on this. Let's see if it's on this computer. For sketches and for short film stuff that I do, I have an entire collection of fire effects and muzzle flashes and stuff. Let's see. I think it might be on my other computer. but I'll look. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's on the other one. Impact. Yeah, I think I just have the audio on this one. Yeah. And on the stream basis, mess number 1, maybe. Yeah, no, it's on my other computer. Sorry. Otherwise, I'd show you. I have a collection of, I have a collection of muzzle flashes and other stuff. I also have, I showed you guys. I don't want to show it again on the stream because I think it affects things. But I have a gun that for non-lethal home defense that shoots pepper balls, for example, and even that, if you shoot it close enough, could blind or seriously injure someone if you hit them in the eye, or you shot them if their mouth was open and you shot them in the face. If they, it certainly could, I don't know if it could break their orbital bone, but it certainly could crush some cartilage at a close distance. And I would never mess around with that around anybody at all. Yeah, paintball guns, exactly the same thing. That close enough, they can be very damaging. And if you know that enough about it, you know that the velocity that comes out of these kind of things is even higher. So, again, I feel terrible for everybody on that set, including the prop master. I mean, it's just brutal. So, and it's, I mean, so sad and pardon me for not knowing how to pronounce her name, Helena or Helena Hutchins, who was the DP on it. And I mean, having some experience filming in these circumstances, it sounds like an off-axis camera shot this way, and she was here, and the director was right behind her, and that's where and it was a multiple shots situation where you walk up, go dap 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 like that, or a mag dump, as it were, and then the second or third round that came out did something awful, and that's when it stopped, but the other person had been injured as well. It's just an accident, and it's the same thing that, like I said, could occur with any other prop, which is why we have safety meetings about stuff. And I'm sure they did too. It's a terrible tragedy, and I don't, there will be blame assigned, I have no doubt. But just, heartbreaking for everybody who worked with her. And she worked on the CW. She worked on the other show she was on, Arch Enemy. She did Arch Enemy. Yeah, CW Superman Lois. Anyways, just rough. So very odd. There, let's see. The hands imagine spending her strong. Let's see. So this is hold on. Let me try to bump this over. This is they're stealing my Bangino who's looking for tiki for his bunghole. And this like constant idea that whenever he this is the whole that's why you got your nose so that you're going for it hard.
It's just near-term inflation. The Wall Street Journal recently talked to like 67 financial experts who said that they saw high inflation going all the way or deep into 2022. About that, with just in terms of inflation, because you had told us at a town hall, I think it was in July.
Percent of all products coming into the United States of America on the West Coast go through Los Angeles and what am I doing here?
Is it Long Beach?
Long Beach, thank you. With 40% of all products coming into the United States of America.
Yeah, he blitzes on Long Beach, by the way. Most people wouldn't know that. And by the way, no, let's talk about that, shall we? Should we talk about this? Because this is, yeah, it was a really good town hall. If you haven't seen it, and I love this whole thing. Look, there was no inflation under him. Like, yeah, from September 2020 to January 2021. Look how low it was when the entire country was ground to a halt because the president ignored COVID in this point. And then it's almost like industries are trying to make up for lost profits when inflation is usually somewhere in the middle of this and this. So it's right here. Yeah. And these are all the whole like, and then of course talking about gas prices.
I must tell you, I don't have a near-term answer. There's two things I could do. I could go in the petroleum reserve and take out and probably reduce the price of gas maybe 18 cents or so a gallon. It's still going to be above $3. Mm. And one of the things that I refused to have happen because I didn't want anybody, I made a commitment, if you pass the stuff I'm talking about, not one single penny in tax would go against anybody making less than 400 grand. And so if you notice, these highway bills are not paid for by gas tax. They're paid for by direct expenditures in other areas. So the average person doesn't have to pay more. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. There's a possibility to be able to bring it down. Depends on a little bit on Saudi Arabia and a few other things that are in the offing.
Yeah, volume. This is one of the things. Hi, good morning, love you. So let's talk a little bit about supply chains. Can we? Is everybody? You got that? Like, hi. What? Hold on. Excuse me. Yes. Kisses. Love you. Between you and Chip, I just have to hop up from the chair every so often and give some love. It's just part of he pounce on you. Chip is on the attack. Incoherent Joe. Supporters, when asked to name one accomplishment Joe Biden has achieved. Well, I'm going to go with the $1.9 trillion rescue package, which is passed already. Of course, the main infrastructure bill, which he drafted, which has passed the House and the Senate already, has to go back to the House to pass, but will absolutely pass. And then, of course, the reconciliation bill, which will indeed pass, but it'll be about 1.9 to 1.7 trillion when it ultimately passes. And of course, the having an actual vaccine plan and already establishing a vaccine plan for kids even before the FDA rolls it out, so that they're ready to go when they get FDA authorization. And we're out of Afghanistan. 20 fucking years, and we're out of Afghanistan. Did I do enough? Did I shrug at any point during this? Anyways, these are going to be their whole, like, they'll take like and saying, what am I doing here, is his way of joking about, like, what's going on? What am I doing? What's the name? Oh yeah, that. Biden's blank answer to high gas prices, no clue what's going on. Yeah, he does. He just says there's no easy fix, which is true. The lie, the incoherent argument is, what's the end of what is the version of reality that they actually think? Who's this? I originally posted a video back. It seems a good day to bring back before you posted. Okay. White House colonel is in charge of the button. They're going to arrest the button anyway. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Twitter is blocking Incoherent Joe from trending. No, it isn't. It's actually trending. That's how we saw it. And freeze frames always help too. But of course, it's a good thing that that Trump never said anything stupid like
First new branch of the U.S. Armed Forces in 75 years, Space Force, not since the look. When they gaze upon Yosemites, for Iowa values. I don't read, obviously. I have a mouth that wants to save our country. And then we'll action replays in magnified fortune.
Yeah, I'm sure. American liar president asks Saudi Arabia's help, openly fights it in secret. How can you claim our friendship? Yeah, he's not claiming your friendship, dum-dum. He's saying that you guys, the Saudis and the Russians sell to Europe. If they keep their prices high because they desperately need the money, then the price of oil will be higher, and therefore American producers, those patriotic companies like Exxon and Chevron and the folks at BP who we allow to drill in our Gulf and off our shores, and in some cases on our land, they'll sell it at a higher price to Europe because they can, because there's a lack of supply. So let's and that's there we go. This is all these things, right? The whole thing is based on this. So let's take a look, shall we? Can I introduce you guys to the global supply chain? And also, can I remind you, and especially Trumpsters, maggots, Republicans in name only, gather round, shall we? Because while you're busy shitting on America for having some sort of unique problem caused by our electoral choices, meaning that the American people chose Joe Biden by an overwhelming number, beat Donald Trump, and therefore somehow America deserves to be flushed down a toilet or is indeed being attacked from within by its own president because of alleged supply chain issues and gas prices and stuff, and that this is our president, the president of the United States of America, attacking our own citizenry in an attempt to destroy the country. I would like to point you to the fact that there is also a world. There are other countries, big ones you like Russia and China, ones you wish you could live in, ones that, you believe have strong leaders. You can't argue with how strong they are as leaders. They're very strong. They're so strong that Russia invites the NRA to have events in their country when you do not have the right to own a weapon in Russia. And if you have to have a rifle license for like 5 years before you can get a handgun license, and then they count your ammo. And if you go hunting with 10 bullets and come back with 9 shells, you get a visit from the cops. Good times. But at least he's a strong leader. You can't argue that Vladimir Putin's is a strong leader. And of course, let's not even talk about gun rights in China. There are none. But on top of that, you guys are apparently big fans of how incredible the Chinese economy, and they're going to eat our lunch. Remember, even Biden's been caught using this phrase. They're going to eat our lunch. That's what it is. So you're always behind China, and it's because of our stupid leaders. It's not the fact that consumers, especially people who shop at Walmart specifically, are responsible for $250 billion of our $500 billion trade deficit all by themselves. That's right. Walmart shoppers. You could cut our trade deficit in half simply by, when you're at Walmart, looking at 95% of the things that are sold in the store that aren't food, I suppose, and even those I have questions about, looking at the label, and if it says, Fabrique au Chine or made in China on it, maybe picking something else or going fucking home and buying something on Etsy, you cowboy. Right? So this is from an article in the New York Times, which you can see why it stood out to me. How the supply chain broke and why it won't be fixed anytime soon. That's the headline. That seems like clickbait. Read the second line. Confession. We didn't even have a logistics beat before the pandemic. Now we do. Here's what we've learned about the global supply chain disruption. We have been, like China entered the World Trade Organization, got, developing nations status in the 90s. They have, over the last 2 decades, everybody's been talking about how China's going to it'd be the most powerful economy on earth. It's inevitable. By 2040, they've got a plan. It's coming. There's no way to avoid it. And everybody just shrugged that off and went, well, I guess that's true. Must be true. Everybody's saying it, right? How many times have you heard that? You didn't hear it from me, and I've been there. And I mean, it just became its own perpetuating myth. And there's a lot of reasons we could go into why China will not become the dominant economy in the world. But effectively, it has become the factory for a lot of consumer goods in the United States. Cheap, in a lot of cases, shitty consumer goods. The real stuff, when Foxconn assembles phones in China, they're making the chips in America or in South Korea, and they're making the glass comes from Japan, and then they're assembled in China. And those assembly plants are now being moved to the United States or North America, because even though it's really cheap in this decade, it gets really expensive in this decade. And if you'd just kept the fucking factory here, it would have been more expensive overall if you balanced it out, but there wouldn't be a shock to your system that costs you more money ultimately anyways. It's actually cheaper to have steady, normal production, even at a higher wage over time, than having this, well, we jumped ahead for 10 years and now we're falling way behind. So there you go. Computer chips, exercise equipment, breakfast cereal. By now, you probably heard the world is running short of many great products, or of a great many products. In an era in which we become accustomed to clicking and waiting for whatever we desire to arrive at our doors, we've experienced the shock of not being able to buy toilet paper, which is totally not related to supply chain. That has to do with, like panic buying, and having to wait months for curtains, which I don't know where, there's no link there. So I don't know the big curtain embargo, and needing to compromise on the color of our new cars. Eek. Why is this happening? Global supply chain. When did it start? I mean, the disruptions go back to early last year. No, they don't. They absolutely do not. They go back to the beginning of the idea that the global supply chain is a cheaper option. It isn't. It can be in the short term, because you're like, oh shit, we can buy this thing cheaper here and this thing cheaper here, and assembling it's cheaper here. We can buy this thing cheaper here, and they have a better thing to buy this cheaper here. But then getting them all together, it relies on the trucks, trains, and boats, which are not always reliable, that involve weather and flooding and all kinds of other shit. And if one thing goes down, the whole supply chain falls apart. And so it's a risk you take. There's been an ROI on this, a return on investment. Is the risk worth it? And ultimately, it's proving not to be. For years, it seemed like it was. And it artificially depressed the cost of goods in the United States, so people could buy a lot of stuff very cheap. So one of America's biggest growing industries is storage. You don't have room in your house for all the shit you buy, so people are getting storage. I mean, it is one of the fastest growing real estate sectors in the country, outpacing houses in a lot of places, largely because you don't have to put bathrooms in them and all kinds of other stuff like that. But still, there you go. This is what are you guys yammering about? Hold on one second. Steel started going up just before Trump left. The tariffs did not help. No, it did not. It's Coitens. I beg your pardon. But the belief is, if you look at this article, this is a picture, I'm guessing, from the Port of Los Angeles last week. Cost of moving cargo has shot up. Shot up, by the way, is that one of these containers, getting one of these containers across costs about, early this year, about $3,000. Now it costs about $20,000 per container. Because there are fewer ships, because there are fewer people. These things, there are fewer truckers to pick these things up and take them across the country and bring them back because people don't want to drive for low pay for long distances, and because they've had a drop off in workers in Asia, and specifically in China as far as shipping goes. So this is the supply chain breaking down. This is the reality of it. Okay, so, but if you look at this article, this is the Port of Savannah. There's a bunch of these things stirring up. Looks like something out of iRobot. Why couldn't factories just produce more? Many did, but this produced its own troubles because there's a backlog. The supply chain is the supplying part, not the demand, not the manufacturing, but supplying it is a big aspect of this. Getting it there. Factories generally need to bring in components to make other things they export, right? So you can't get the pieces. A lot of the stuff that's quote unquote made in China is actually assembled in China. Kind of stretching the meaning of the word made, if you know what I mean. For example, a computer assembled in China, there we go, may require a chip made in Taiwan or Malaysia, a flat panel display from South Korea, and dozens of other electronic panels from around the world requiring specialized chemicals from other parts of China or Europe. Right. So what happened? All the giant container ships, they got stuck in the wrong places, yada, yada. What exactly is in short supply? Little bits of everything. Because that's the problem with the global supply chain. It's not one big crash point or you could fix that. It's the little bits of everything that slow everything down, especially when something like COVID happens. It's a choke point. So let's look at, now this article talks about, I mean, as if this is, if you read this, you would think this has to do with just American consumerism, and this is the only place it's happening. Right? You would think that this is the issue. Right? That this is the United States issue, and it's really just us. This is an American issue caused by our government and our circumstance. Instead, it is a worldwide problem because it is directly related to COVID and all the ancillary problems to do with COVID. Lots of dead workers, lots of lockdowns or limited workspace stuff where you have to distance each other so people can't have as many people working in a factory as possible because it will spread and it will wipe everybody out. And it's funny how these developing countries, and I don't include China in that, any country with a space program is not developing. That would be my rule. You can have whatever rule you want. That would be my rule. If you have a space program, you are not a developing country. You are developed. That's the very definition of developed. Okay. So if they have, the idea is that we rely on Chinese goods. They're not coming here. It's all backed up at the port of Los Angeles, and that's the problem. Well, I got news for you. This is happening everywhere. Fears of a bottleneck recession, how shortages are hurting Germany. Europe's largest economy is particularly vulnerable to shortages of key parts and raw materials because of its dependence on exports. They make stuff there. They get stuff that they need to make the stuff that they send out. A machine for winding paper into rolls at Voith, a German company that has started buying from suppliers closer to its factories. Get used to that idea too. This will also lead to pay raises around the globe and companies having to retool to deal with this particular fact. And until they can find a way to, fix supply chain issues or find cheaper sources of stuff closer to home, this is just going to have to be an aspect where they bite the bullet. And the idea is that there'll be less profit left over, and therefore they're going to have to find other ways to make up for it. Yeah. Anyways, in Germany, where 1 in 4 jobs depends on exports, the crisis is gumming up the world's supply chain. See, I thought it was the United States. I thought this was all Brandon's fault. Apparently, yes, we are short in UK too, empty shelves. That has a lot to do with trucking too, Martha. You have a lot of stuff there, but getting it around in time is a major factor. Also, Brexit. Brexit although you could argue the values of it as a policy, pro and con, the timing was fucking terrible. It's amazing. It's almost like the people behind Brexit couldn't imagine that there would be a problem with global supply chains that would be acute and affect the entire globe. Yeah. So weighing heavily on the economy, which is Europe's largest and linchpin to global commerce, have begun to predict a bottleneck recession. That's a supply chain issue. There you go. Mar-a-Lago is up for sale. Is it? Where's that from? Yeah, Brexit's a pile of pants. So here, this is Germany. This is, the biggest economy in Europe and the most powerful exporter. Cars, all kinds of stuff. The Germans make a lot of stuff. And they're being hit hard because they need little things to make their big things. And when those little things don't come in, the big things can't go out. And when they do have the big things that can go out, if there's nothing to take them out, meaning trucks and trains and ships and containers and shit like that, they just kind of sit there, which is bad for things with electronic parts. They not only get, they become obsolete over time. So the second they leave your factory, it's a countdown to obsolescence. Not only do they have that issue, but they have issues with just weather, leaving stuff to rot. Look at the Chinese factories that have piles of shit. We'll look at that in a second. Supply shortages sap strength of Eurozone recovery. See, I thought that this whole inflation thing was a U.S. thing, and that Biden's policies were causing all these problems all over the world. Gee whiz. But apparently not. The Eurozone's having the same issue. Eurozone, and this is from September. Eurozone business activity remained strong last month despite fears about the Delta variant of the coronavirus. I have some good news at the end of this, by the way. Stick around. I do have some good news. Despite fears of the Delta variant of the coronavirus, widespread supply chains, according to a survey which suggested the bloc's economy could be back to pre-COVID levels by year end. So this is not, they don't expect it to go on like this. And then, of course, any reliance we have on them or they have on us will again start to pick up. And then this is the biggest fear Republicans have going into 2022, is that they're going to shit on everything about this until the end of the year. And then when it starts to come back around again, they're going to have to fight this on like CRT and abortion. And that's all they're going to have next year. And they know this. Okay, so Wall Street Journal. Supply chain crisis fuels latest retreat from globalization. Now, this is the overall business model shift that's going on worldwide. And again, you're going to see a shift. Like I said, go to IKEA now, and a lot of the stuff that you'll see that used to say Fabrique au Chine, thanks to our Canadian brothers and sisters in the North who want everything in English and French, or made in China, is now saying made in the Czech Republic. They have moved factories there or upped the amount of work that's being done there and lessened their factories in other places. And I'm not going to subscribe to this, but the Wall Street Journal is making this point. And we'll go to here. Check this out. Russia hikes rates as economists warn of triple threat to economy. So again, I thought, Russia's a very powerful leader. I know a lot of Trumpers and maggots appreciate everything that Putin did for Trump. We don't know why he stopped. Apparently he's taken his foot off the brake, and now the stories about the pee-pee tape are starting to come to surface again. But they shit the bed on their vaccine rollout, and their anti-vax attempts to get ahead of everybody, like allegedly stealing the AstraZeneca formula to make the Sputnik vaccine and then rushing it through testing, when AstraZeneca is the one that had the most problems so far, even beyond the Johnson & Johnson pause. It seems to be Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, AstraZeneca as far as trustworthiness overall for a lot of folks. But they ended up stealing the AstraZeneca formula, allegedly. And so a lot of Russians, only 35% of Russians are vaccinated because they don't trust it. So they had to shut down schools for 2 weeks. Putin's in hiding because people in his circle have it. He's been vaccinated, but they're not taking any chances because they've had the Sputnik and they think it's shit. That their interest rates are at 7.5%. Russian economy recovered to its pre-coronavirus size earlier this year. Gee whiz, they're almost the size of Italy again. A quicker recovery than first expected and faster than most large economies because it was based on bullshit, but now faces serious headwinds from both home and abroad. The central bank said inflation, wait a minute, I thought inflation was an American issue caused by the Biden administration in an attempt to destroy America. Was developing substantially above forecast and is expected to be within the range of 7.4 to 7.9% at the end of 2021. 7.9% inflation in Russia. The average Russian makes about $9,000 US. The average American, somewhere in the order of 68,000 US. Just so you know. So when you talk about 5% raise in what money you have left over to, to pay for expensive gas or expensive toys or expensive gifts or expensive food this holiday season, a 5.3 to 5.6% rise after, by the way, a year of nearly fucking nothing, 1.2% because we were all locked down. Look at this shit. 7.4 to 7.9 by the end of the year. They said they were recovering. Governor Elvira Nabiulina has taken an aggressive approach to taming inflation, has warned for months that rising price threatens to derail the Russian recovery. The train has left the station. 68,000 medium income. No, that is the current one, Joy. That's median. Might be median household, but you know what I mean. Those fears prompted, and we're talking household in Russia as well, 9,000. You got 4 people, they're living on 9,000. You got 2 people, they're living on 9,000. You got 18 people, they're living on 9,000 in Russia. Those fears prompted her to increase the central bank's key interest rate by 0.75% to 7.5%, a more aggressive hike than financial markets were expecting. The Russian ruble advanced on the news, gaining 1.4. They're trying to strengthen the ruble against the U.S. dollar, trading 70.1. Its strongest level since before the outbreak, blah, blah, blah. Okay. They're also, they just had to do a new 2-week school lockdown. They've had worse, by the way. This is followed, this is their interest rate. When they spike the interest rate, that's what they believe drives down this business right here. So you can kind of track it you get that interest rate above it and it starts driving the interest rate down. That's what they're hoping for. Unfortunately, look at this little guy right here. The problem is when they crisscross right here. This business, that's what's happening right here. Look at this shit. The problem is this isn't based on loaning, or this is based on the availability of goods. This is based on supply chain problems and whatever they're producing. So like even within the country, if factories aren't producing shit, they're screwed. Does this interest any of you guys, or do you just want to like go watch stuff about Gabby? They found whatever. Laundry's body. Here you go. Global supply chain disruption forces U.S. consumers to go without. Again, a very U.S.-centric version of events from VOA. China's the center of manufacturing of the world. Not for long. And when COVID-19 and when COVID-19 hit, manufacturing was disrupted, producing delays, giving way to shipping delays. Now it's difficult, sometimes impossible to get certain items. VOA's Carolyn Presutti looks at what's missing. And by the way, there's not a lack of waffles. I don't know what the fuck that is. Now let's look at the Financial Times. The great uncoupling. One supply chain for China, one for everyone, everywhere else. This is where we're headed in the next 2 decades. If you'd asked anybody about this, except me and a couple other people who were there, if you'd asked anybody about this 5 years ago, they would have said this is impossible. That this is that China being the linchpin to worldwide production is indeed the key to them becoming the most dominant economy in the world, and there's no escaping it. They got a death grip on production. No one's gonna ever pull it back. It's done. It's cooked, right? Think back 5 years ago. Was anybody talking about it in these terms? And how did this come about? Did this come about because of Trump's tariffs? Did this come about because a change in U.S. consumer issues? Did we stop? Were there a little bit of a downturn because of China's treatment of the Uyghur Muslims, for example? I would argue a little bit of that is a factor. Certainly, media companies stopped telling the story about China as strongly, like the NBA's behind that. LeBron and all those guys protecting China. And John Cena's weird apology for calling Taiwan a country, which it is, it was becoming increasingly obvious that there was a skeevy aspect to this. But now it's not about the morals of how they treat the Uyghurs and the like. Or whether or not they're starting a war with India over the water in Tibet, because nobody gives like the Chinese and to some degree even the Indians don't give a rat fuck about the people of Tibet or their sovereignty or any of that stuff. It's the glacier water that they need. Although now with the flooding in China, that's a debatable point as well. It might have can we send some of that water to Tibet? Maybe we can make it into a glacier. What happens? So, John Cena speaking Mandarin was unsettling. Well, it wasn't that he was speaking Mandarin, it was what he said. So, anyways, right now, China and Russia, I mean, they were both looking pretty impervious a few years ago. And the problems that they're finding right now are completely self-constructed. And we'll you guys, we've talked about, my experience in China, and I'm a big fan of Chinese culture and the Chinese people. It's the government that's just gotten increasingly terrible, and it's very sad. And when we were over there shooting the travel show that I was doing, it started off very kind of naive fun about just a travel show to show the sights. And then increasingly it became it became obvious that this was another just kind of propaganda manipulation by the government through funding. So anyways, earlier this year, 4 lawyers, accountants, and bankers from all over Latin America piled into a conference room in an office tower on Miami waterfront. They listened spellbound as Nicholas Chen, an energetic lawyer who had come all the way from Taiwan, told them about an exodus of manufacturing from China that could make them rich. The tsunami waters are flowing outward now, Mr. Chen said to the assembled audience. Pointing to the U.S. trade war with China, he said many companies were having second thoughts about maintaining operations in the Asian country. Huge numbers of China-located companies are shifting their purchase orders, manufacturing capacities, and operations out of China. This can become our El Dorado. And Taiwan's, along with Vietnam, Cambodia, South Korea, and other countries are there to pick up the slack, believe me. Knows how to make a good pitch. Starting in the 1990s, the influx made Suzhou one of the largest clusters of Taiwanese manufacturing in China, blah, blah, blah. They're moving out too. Driven by President Trump's push to decouple the U.S. economy from China and the disruption caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Yeah, that's the part that came in. He wasn't decoupling us during his deals. He was trying to even out the coupling and keep it going. For pittance, by the way. Remember, his trade deal was going to be $30 billion a year. $30 billion. We have a $29 trillion economy. We have a $500 billion trade deficit with China, and they were going to buy $30 billion worth of farm goods a year? We can't sell that shit to Europe? Are you out of your mind? Untangling supply chains that have built up over a generation, complex and difficult task, and the multinational companies which sell it to the Chinese market will stay and even expand. But if companies that once used the mainland to make goods for export do decide to depart in significant numbers, it will represent a major reversal of 5 decades of economic integration between the U.S. and China. That, I would argue, is now happening. And when was this article? Yeah, October 5th, 2020. They're talking about this. And this was also pointing to a direction that the Biden administration was talking about as well. Here's more supply chain stuff. By the way, this whole thing, the point of this is the great uncoupling is that basically COVID was a force accelerator for this situation. It gave everybody an excuse. The Uyghur concentration camps combined with this are all the excuse major corporations needed to move someplace else. And there are other countries with it's been my argument about how we could have gotten out of Afghanistan. There's nothing that would have stopped Trump from last year from going, we got to get our people out. This COVID's too terrible. You guys can stand on your own. We're leaving. Could have done it last year without a shot fired. Nothing. Pack it up. Yeah, COVID. We're bringing everybody home. It's COVID. We can't stick around. We can't train you guys anyways, which is the only thing we were doing. So we're getting out. But he didn't because he was never going to leave, which he's already said. All right. So coal and iron pile up in South Africa on rail constraints. So again, this has nothing to do with production. This has nothing to do with demand on the other side. It has everything to do with transportation. And this is incontinent. They're not incontinent. In the continent of Africa. Within the continent. Fentanyl comes from China and Mexico. Largely comes from China through Mexico. But there's, because the cartels apparently are concerned that fentanyl is killing their addicts. So that's another conversation for another time. Like when the cartels are trying to no, stop buying fentanyl. Buy more meth. It keeps you awake and you buy more of it. It's like fentanyl's bad for their business model. South Africa's having a lot of problems in terms of their transportation. And there's a lot of internal security issues and safety issues, and South Africa's kind of screwed right now. But also on top of that is they have goods and services even beyond COVID that can't get out of the country or can't get out of that section of the country to the other parts of the country, which stop stuff from being made in those parts of the country, which make their way into Europe or into other stuff. Okay, so let me see it. This is supply chain inflation headwinds hamper the global recovery. This is, pretty recent Rudy COVID chart. 30 billion is a spit in the wind, the economic ocean. You don't spit in the wind, Jim Croce. That's right. Yeah, I mean, everything Trump sells as his reason why it was amazing was a bullshit, and even the illusion of it was wiped out by his shitty handling of COVID, where he was like, I like to downplay it. I don't want to fuck the market. So this is third quarter 2021. More than 18 months after the global recession triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic started, the economic recovery continues. I thought we were out of it, and we built it again. Didn't Trump build it twice because of the Great Foundation? Mm-hmm. This trend owes much to progress in the vaccine rollout of the summer. Oh wait, who did the vaccine rollout over the summer? Who found out there was no plan and then put together a plan? I'm racking my brain. Particularly in advanced economies, in turn, this is spurring a rebound in consumption of high contact services. Situation remains heterogeneous. Heterogeneous? I'm going to go with that. In emerging economies, heterogeneous just sounds very weird. And I like erogenous, sounds very sexy. This rebound is benefiting export-oriented countries while service-dependent economies continue lagging. By the way, there is an entire conversation to be having about how China is talking about how they're moving from a manufacturing economy to a service economy. Basically just servicing the new millionaires they made, they created during the manufacturing trend that they've had over the last few years, because those fucking people have nowhere to spend their money except outside the country. So they're trying to keep them busy so they keep their money inside the country, and because they keep trying to smuggle it out and buy property in Vancouver. Despite the positive outlooks, signs the global recovery is losing momentum are accumulating. Oh, the global recovery is losing momentum. See, I thought that was the United States. I thought that was all because Joe Biden has dementia and he doesn't know anything. Pandemic outbreaks and critical links of the supply chain. Wait, we're not a critical link of the supply chain. We're at the end of the supply chain. Have resulted in supply disruptions, feeding price pressures. These disruptions are starting to affect manufacturers' production and sales across the globe. Headwinds represented by supply concerns, labor shortages, and inflation, alongside the lingering threat of COVID-19, add to the list of risks and uncertainties. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to being tied to the entire planet. In light of the continued recovery, COFACE upgraded its risk assessment for 26 countries, including Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Switzerland, and Belgium. Strong exports of manufactured goods to advanced markets are prompting upgrades for export-oriented economies in Central and Eastern Europe, Poland, Hungary, Czechia. In Asia, South Korea, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Curious that they talk about Hong Kong, but not in terms of China. And in Turkey, which is that's a whole other thing that's happening. After downgrading 78 countries' risk assessments last year, these upgrades are in addition to the 16 already implemented in the first half of 2020. They are accompanied by 30 selectoral assessment upgrades. So they're like this. There's hamstrings every fucking where in the entire world. Global manufacturing sector has recovered fast since mid-2020, prompted by increased spending on consumer goods. People are buying the shit that was sitting. Now it's making the new shit that keep that going, which is ridiculous and nearly impossible, but they'll pretend it is. Because of robust household demand, strong trade flows continue to be a key part of the economic growth. That's right, because the United States continued to grow and since January, weirdly enough. Notably in Asia Pacific, demand for electronics and commodities are indeed benefiting several markets in the region, such as South Korea. And, oh, look at that little country. Markets at Taiwan. The economy of several key commodity exporters, Russia, Ukraine, South Africa, Chile, Algeria, etc., are also supported by higher prices, except internally, where we noted earlier that they're fucked. So let's see. I wanted to get. Let's see. This little part right here kind of stands out. The Chinese economy is experiencing some turbulence. Also of importance to the global economy, China's economy shows signs of slowdown ahead of the second half of 2021. In the third quarter, GDP was up 4.9% from a year ago. You have to understand, 4.9% sounds like, oh shit, your GDP's up. That's a number we like, right? 4.9% growth is fantastic if you have 340 million people. If you have allegedly 1.3 billion people, 4.9% is a slide backwards. You need 9% growth just to feed the babies. The slowest pace since the third quarter of 2020, meaning it's going backwards. On a quarterly basis, activity merely expended, activity merely expended plus 2.2%. We forecast China's economy to grow 7.5% this year, expecting GDP growth to remain low in the last quarter. That's wishful thinking, and that's if they bail out Evergrande, and that's all the shit they're talking about. Several factors are behind the deceleration, that's a lovely word, in Chinese economic activity. Policy tightening and credit growth, that's Xi Jinping's, in case you don't know, he set a rule on how hard it is and what qualifications you need to get loans as a developer to build more properties, because there was too much expansion, like out of control expansion in the real estate market in China, and they were trying to quell that. But unfortunately, the method they used to quell it, all it did was stop the companies that were experiencing a downturn because of COVID and all kinds of other factors from being able to borrow the money they need to pay their debts while they transition through and do other shit. So they basically they just threw a giant monkey wrench in their economic system. It was already stupid to begin with, but they basically just tripped their worst runner, who was pretending to be in front the whole time. Like in a relay race or a 400 meter or whatever, where you could lap somebody and you're like, that guy's ahead of the other guy. And he's like, no, actually, he's behind everyone else. He's just 2 feet. He's so far behind. The other guy is catching up. The guy in front is catching up to him. And if you look at it without looking at the track or where he was, it looks like this guy's winning. When this guy is way winning, that's the Chinese real estate market right now. They're the last guy in the relay race who's so far behind that he looks like he's ahead. That's what they've been doing. Softening domestic consumption, that's a lovely way of putting it, and energy rationing for industries. This is also, by the way, a big part of what you're seeing in trade of goods coming out of China. They are rationing coal right now because they're running out of energy. They import. Do people even know that China imports huge amounts of coal and oil and gas to run their economy. The illusion has always been that they have giant coal mines, they're always running, and that they're just powering it because they have a lot of coal, so that's why they burn so much coal. They buy a shit ton of it from Australia because it burns more efficiently, the coal that they get from Australia, than the shit they have in their country. There is a difference. There's no such thing as clean coal, but there sure as shit is coal that's, more efficient for what you want, provides more energy. Anyways, so I'm not a plunker. Yeah. Let's take a look at this guy. This is Israel. I'm just kind of picking other countries, kind of like Germany. Jobs galore, but Israelis don't want them. Post-COVID, it seems like a lot of people don't want to go back to the daily grind, and right now they don't have to. This looks like an article from the fucking New York Times about the job force in America, right? Didn't you think this was only happening here? This is happening all across Europe, too. How many of their cities have pollution? You mean in China? It's terrible. Yeah. Right? How many? I know this guy's teaching a yoga class and nobody's showing up. These are some bathing costumes, by the way. This is some serious lack of fun. That you're like, how do you not? All right. Just saying. And look, take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. My woman done left. It took all the reason I was working for. Like, really? Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, is quoting Johnny Paycheck's song from the 70s. And they're playing. Look at this. You can even play a link of it. And by the way, this guy, like this Johnny Paycheck, by the way, he was a sex symbol in the 70s. Now he looks like somebody that they found guilty and after years discovered he was the criminal behind a series of murders in the 70s. He looks like a true crime victim or a true crime villain. It's early to say exactly how the pandemic has changed the nature of the labor market in the long run, but in Israel and most of the developed world, wait a minute, most of the developed world? I thought this was, again, isn't this a U.S. problem? It seems to have at least created a serious supply-demand imbalance. You think? Economies are bouncing back from the worst COVID recession and lots of jobs are on offer, but workers are less anxious to apply for them. Let's see. Control, there we go. Open link, a new tab. We'll take a look at that guy in a second. That's a Guardian article. How the supply chain crisis is affecting 6 big economies. 6! From container ship queues in the U.S. to power cuts in China, the post-COVID pickup in activity is taking a toll. Wait, we're not going to have all the plastic crap we can bury ourselves in? U.S. retailers telling people to shop early for for Christmas because the likely shortage is caused by supply chain crisis. You think? And then you know what's going to happen? There's going to be a glut of shit because they ordered it all and it's going to come late, and then there's going to be some like Christmas in February sale. United States, yes, we were talking about this. China. What, China? What are you talking about? The lights are beginning to go out on large parts of China's economy and the cities. The investment banks, Nomura and Goldman Sachs, have downgraded their forecast for growth in the world's number 2 economy in the wake of, and we do mean number 2, economy in the wake of power cuts that have idled factories and are also extending already long delays at ports. Electricity cuts to the entire sections of Shenyang in northern Liaoning province have meant traffic lights haven't worked for a week, raising safety concerns for the city's many cyclists. It's quite inconvenient to ride in the dark. One resident, Zhu Meiying, told the South China Morning Post, for people who drive, they have car lights, but for people who ride bicycles, it's quite dangerous. Street lights on some roads have to be kept on because it's about lives, right? Zhu questioned what the government's plans were to address the problem. That's adorable. Liaoning province says rationing is the only thing stopping the power grid from collapsing. Some compounds are without power during daylight hours, cutting off water supply and elevators, even in high rises. Germany, we talked about this one as well, 14.3% surge in energy prices in Germany, hence the need for that pipeline for Russia, which they're using for. And again, let's say you have a problem with Russia in the future. And one of the ways you want to hurt them is by cutting off their the petrodollars that they have going into Europe. Do you want to sink a bunch of ships, or do you want to cut off a pipeline and harm no one? Just saying strategically, if anybody wants to think about things. This is put down to growing demand, short supply, lack of alternative energy sources, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. Russia. Look at that. Wait a minute. Russia? I thought they had a strong leader. Christmas is canceled, right? As energy prices, yeah, I'm sorry, maggots and Trumpsters who say Christmas is canceled. I guess you're just going to have to use it as a religious holiday where you appreciate Jesus. I'm sorry that you have grown more than anyone else to believe that Christmas is only a commodity holiday devoid of any moral worth. Oops. Russia, as energy prices soar elsewhere, Russia finds itself in an enviable position of being the world's largest net oil and gas exporter combined. Except, while Russian state television has gloated over videos of British drivers queuing for petrol, the Kremlin has told Europeans that the sooner its Nord Stream 2 pipeline is open, the quicker gas prices will stabilize. By the way, they're choking this off on purpose. By the way, one of the reasons why we have higher oil prices because U.S. providers are selling to Europe at a higher rate because Russia's cutting them off and driving the price up. Same thing with the Saudis who want the price to go up because they're running out of oil and they need to make as much money off of it in the final days as they possibly can. It's a hard shock to a Russian economy that has done so much to shock itself, unilaterally banning Western imports of meat, fruit, vegetables, and dairy in 2014. Who was president then? Yet there are shortages. High-end Moscow restaurants say they cannot find high-quality marbled beef. Boo fuckity who. The good stuff is being exported to higher prices to China. Or octopus from Indonesia. This was another article too, like Indonesian octopus. This is the shit that Moscow is bitching about. Could you have more of like a dick oligarchy? Think about what you hear written about the United States economy. Right? What do you hear about that Americans want to be able to buy toys for their kids this Christmas? Right? That's the biggest consumer concern. Gas prices, I got to drive to work. I'm concerned about gas prices. Meanwhile, Russia is worried about marbled beef for their rich restaurants. Again, average Russian household, $9,000 US. And octopus from Indonesia. Food inflation is a 7% annual rate. It's highest in 5 years. An issue the Kremlin did its utmost to keep under wraps before parliamentary elections last month. Yeah, so fake news. The UK, what a surprise. Threatened by a pingdemic that forced thousands of workers to self-isolate after they came into contact with someone with COVID-19. This is just leftover from this. This has nothing to do with economic policy. Australia, same kind of situation here. Shortages of timber, steel, and other materials are causing havoc in Australia's huge construction industry, and builders are struggling to keep up with demand. With housing prices rising at their fastest rate since 1989, owing to post-pandemic demand and government stimulus, companies are scrambling to get hold of supplies, and prices are said to be going through the roof. Adam Robson, who runs Precaro, a design and construction business in Gold Coast, Queensland, said delivery times for steel and timber have blown it out from 4 weeks to 4 or 5 months amid the supply squeeze. You used to be able to buy timber off the shelf, but you can't do that anymore. A lot of it comes from China and India, and we just can't get enough containers to the ports. See, I thought, can't just get enough containers to the ports. Fuck, they're right there. Housewives, do you ever realize the rich are usually whining about stupid shit constantly? I have not heard a consistent bitching in articles in the New York Times about, people in New York going, I just can't. Have you tried to get a great marbled beef steak right now? It's terrible. Like, those are not, even Americans have the sense, even if they feel that way, to shut the fuck up most of the time. But I guess in the Moscow Times, that's the thing, like, we can't even get, I'm having to eat some of I'm having to turn to human trafficking to get good cuts of meat. Australia is expected to increase output to its economy by 4% this year, despite its two most populous states, New South Wales and Victoria, being in lengthy lockdowns, which they've just eased. The Reserve Park of Australia said this week that it has expected shipping costs and higher wages to push inflation above its target. Yeah, wages go up, and so does inflation. Just saying. That's for all the UBI folks out there. The minute UBI goes online, cost of consumer goods goes up, whatever that amount is. Everybody's going to want to scramble for that extra dollar that's in the system. It becomes a zero sum. Add $1,000, lose $1,000 in a consumer-based economy. I got news for you. As long as someone has to be paid to climb a fucking tree and get coconuts out of it, or to harvest pineapples, or to fucking sort apples, and that person doesn't want to do that work for free, I can't imagine why. Those apples are going to cost something. As long as they require water, which is a finite resource, soil, fertilizer, tilling, pesticides or some pest reduction thing, that fruit you eat is going to cost something. If it doesn't cost cash, it's going to cost effort. So even if you remove money from the process, if somebody's like, hey, I picked this apple, give it to me. No, fucking shine my shoes. I almost broke my fucking neck getting this basket of apples. You want an apple? What are you doing for me? Why should I have to do anything for you? You got a whole bushel. You can't eat all those. Yeah, that's not the point. I risked my neck climbing that fucking tree. Yeah, but now you're down here. What do you mean now I'm down here? Piss off. Everything's socialism once the work is done and you're just staring at the bushel, right? That's the issue. So until we have robots making shit and the robots are making the robots, I got news for you. You're going to end up paying somebody for something. And if those people are automatically getting $1,000 a month extra, their rent's going to go up. The cost of their shit that they buy is going to go up. And then that's going to spread to everything, because it's not like you give somebody $1,000 for UBI. And this is why it doesn't work. I mean, I like the emotional idea of it, but this is why it will never work. Unless you have rent control and price controls and control and controls of controls before you even try it, it's fucking gone. And here's the thing. You get $1,000 a month. Your landlord knows this. Your car company knows this. So suddenly, between the two of them, which one's going to take the biggest fucking chunk? And now the dude with the bushel of apples is going to they were $1. Now they're $1.25. You got an extra $1,000. You do too. Yeah, but I got a car and my rent just went up. Oh shit. All right. Well, here's $1.25. And then those little quarters go everywhere in the entire economy to where that $1,000 you get from the government and UBI turns into $1,500 of inflation. Yeah, the Great Reset has been canceled due to a lack of reset. Exactly. Yeah, that's true. We should call Brenda. That's brilliant. Trump's network should be called Truther, not Truth. Let's see. I'm just checking out the chat right now. Can I spend my Biden bucks anywhere I don't like the Wally World? Yeah, no, you cannot. You can only spend them there. That's the other thing too, is somebody thinks that the UBI immediately stays in the United States or stays in impoverished communities. Are you out of your fucking mind? You might as well just, cut people in the desert and wait for the vultures. I'll get your wheelbarrows now to carry all the money for bread, right? Same thing as raising the minimum wage. It effectively is that over time. If you do it all at once, that's why a lot of places are against a federal minimum wage, because you raise that and then everybody else goes, well, shit, I got to pay my employees. No, I'm not wrong about UBI. It works in microcosm. It does not work in macroeconomics. It just does not. Because there are no price controls. There are none. And if it was all like Americans, like we're only buying American shit from Americans with our UBI dollars, then you might have a case, but it's a worldwide economy. There's no fucking way that the rest of the world's going, hey, by the way, the Americans all have an extra $1,000 in their pocket. Well, fantastic. Bink. You're willing to share. I'm glad, because you won't have a choice. Is Giuliani going for the insanity defense in the Dominion lawsuit? No, he's going for the moron defense. Since I'm reading the chat, hi, yes. Oh, Peter Scolari passed? If you don't know, Peter Scolari was, if we're talking about the same person, was Tom Hanks' co-star in Bosom Buddies. And a very funny guy. It's very sad. China increasing military operations in Taiwan, 60% of semiconductors made there. Well, the idea is that they're going to try and do that. The problem is it's already too late. We in Australia and UK and more than likely Japan, although I don't know what the extent of it is, have ships in the region, and we have U.S. soldiers on the ground training Taiwanese folks. If China invaded Taiwan like they had planned, it would entail killing U.S. soldiers, which is a huge leap forward for them that they're not willing to take. And why would they even need it? Jews only became white in the 1970s? What? Mm-hmm. I think the absorption of Jews into greater society has a sort of 1935 to 1945 shelf, time window overall. A discussion about white crime stats. I see. I know what that was related to. All right. Most addicts start out as patients. Most opioid addicts, I would argue. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyways, so where were we? Oh yes, Australia's having problems with inflation. And then what was did I miss one down here? UK. I don't know why the UK is at an issue with this. Manufacturing, which has boomed as consumers are unable to eat out, bought things for their homes, which had a better time. Has had a better time, but still remains about 2.5% smaller than its previous high in 2019. Beg your pardon. 2.5%, that's huge. It's millions and billions and billions. If whatever. And then, Australia was the last one in that list. And then, of course, let's get to some good news, though. Let's just try this. Here. This is in the week. This is some, I think was it Salon or somebody used to do a list of, odd statistics that kind of help you understand things, put things in perspective. And again, we are be aware of this as I read these out. Because you want the percentage and the actual base number that it's referencing, or you don't have the whole story. But this will hopefully aid you in understanding sort of globally what's going on supply chain wise a little bit. 36%. That is the share of U.S. imports that pass through the Los Angeles Long Beach port complex. See, you thought L.A. was just a showbiz town. But there's a little strip of land that goes from Los Angeles, proper, through other cities down to Long Beach, which it's still attached to like a tail. And so they have a huge stake in Long Beach because they paid for it initially, and that's how it happened. And the attachment to Long Beach, and then it's followed by its incorporation, and they kind of split the controls over it. Now, 36%. That's a huge amount of goods coming into the United States. And that has a lot to do with the fact that so much of it comes from China. Doesn't all come from there. South Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, Cambodia, and again, an increasing number of these places. And also Hong Kong, which is, interesting to see it referred to as a separate thing. I will not miss my flight. It's this afternoon. I'm totally fine. Thank you. I do have to pack, though, and shower, which I will be doing after the show. I've got 15 minutes. Thank you for reminding me. Are we still feeding the troll? Of course, we always feed the trolls. They help us reach a broader audience. They are useful idiots at this point. It'd be one thing if they just sat there and hate watched, but the fact that they type things, that's the winner. That's great. We don't always get somebody to come in and start super chatting because they feel like they've been denied free speech. Because I don't let them lie in my feed. Okay. 75 container ships are waiting outside the port of Los Angeles as of Thursday, according to Times' Alana Samuels. 40, the number of container ships waiting off California September 1st. So there's a backup of an extra 35 that are there. They've each got thousands of containers amongst them waiting to come in. $20,000, $586. That's the median cost. That's not the high end. It's not the low end. It's the middle cost of a shipping container, which is twice what it cost in July. It was $10,000 in July and 4 times what it cost in January. So it's about $5,000 to send the median cost. So half or more less than that, half or more, right? Up to about, this number. 10 million containers are expected to come into the port in 2021, not including the ones that are just totally fentanyl. 23 billion profits booked by the 7 largest publicly traded ocean carriers in the first half of 2021. Somebody is making a lot of money on this supply chain bottleneck, up from $1 billion a year earlier. So they made $1 billion last year. They're making $23 billion this year. Now, this is interesting. Out of 160 countries, the U.S. ranks in 14th, according to the World Bank, in moving goods efficiently in 2018. As of 2018, we were 16th. We're probably in the same zone because everybody's having the same problem we are right now. I mean, it'll probably vary or because we're the only ones they're looking at. 0 to 50. Number of trucks arriving to pick up containers during overnight shifts at Long Beach, despite 24/7 openings, according to freight logistics firm Flexport. 0 to 50. Okay, that's a kind of a broad number. How many are during the day? We'll find. 90% turnover rate at some of the trucking companies in the last quarter of 2020. They lost 90% of their workers in the last quarter, mainly because they were all going to Trump rallies and trying to stop the steal. I'm kidding, truckers. 25 miles. Length freight trains were backed up trying to enter Union Pacific's enormous Global 4 shipping facility in Joliet, Illinois over the summer. 500. The number of football fields that would fit in the Global 4 facility. 500 football fields. Holy shit, Joliet. Think about the amount of trade that goes through there. The enormity of the economy that this is dealing with. 17 days. That's how many days it takes for a container chassis to leave the Union Pacific facility and return for another container, up from 3.5 days. This is one of the biggest things. How do you get those back in there? The other thing is more trains. Get more trains on the track, taking more of these things back. Empty containers, because they're not taking anything from here. We're keeping all our shit. We're not exporting that many goods. These shipping companies don't want to leave without a bunch of shit in their, in the containers going back to Asia to pick up stuff and bring it here. They don't want to come full and leave empty. So they're dicking around. That's part of the backup. We're not selling our stuff. It's not even that it's not because we can't. It's because we won't. A lot of it's being sold here. The price is reasonable. People have more cash in their pocket because of UI and other things. So they're willing to pay slightly higher prices for goods and services and food and blah, blah, blah. So they're buying it at home. 31,000. Employees on Union Pacific's payroll, more than a third fewer in 2015. So they lost a third of their employees since 2015. Just for that one area. The thing that's got 500 football fields in size. 1 million toys from Amazon's holiday list. And this is the part where it gets really interesting. This is really fascinating. The tail end of this. Check this out. 1 million toys from Amazon's holiday list have been sold by October 13th, 9 weeks before Christmas. People are buying stuff early because they're afraid the next round of it isn't going to be here on time. Largely, it will be. I don't want to shock anybody or screw with Black Friday. But it's going to be like, they're going to use this as an excuse. Businesses are going to use this as an excuse to like drive up prices a little bit, but also try so that they can drop them artificially and go, we're having a huge sale. The shipment got here. Or wait. And they'll have like weird rush to get the stuff, line up in front of Best Buy, consumer driven activity. 1.3 trillion. This is the projected 2021 US holiday retail sales, up 7 to 9% from 2020. From 2020, when there was not a dip in holiday sales in 2020. People were buying shit, they were just mailing it, and in some cases they were, starting to go out or spending a little time with small groups of families, especially if they were early and vaccinated. The old folks had gotten vaccinated, whatnot. But in 2020, in the holiday season, people were still buying shit. They were just doing it on Amazon, or they were mailing it to people. Like, we can't be there with you, but here's a gift. There wasn't a huge dip. This is one of the areas that did, because of unemployment insurance, actually stayed relatively high. And this year, it's going to be 7 to 9% higher, even with the bottleneck, even with supply chains. Think about that for a second. All you're hearing about supply chains, all you're hearing about these horrible inflation, gas prices, and all that shit. Yes, eBay, absolutely. Where's all this extra money coming from? A lot of it's coming from unemployment insurance that wasn't spent. Savings are up higher than they've been in a long time. Wages have gone up because people are competing for workers. And there's a lot of infusion money going out in the market from the rescue package and other things that are allowing companies to buy more shit, to expand their companies or to keep their companies afloat. And that money goes into somebody else's pocket here in the country. Yes, last year made Bezos stinky rich, and he was just delivering the shit. Notice he doesn't own that stuff. He's just the conduit for you getting it to yourself. That's how much, think how rich Bezos is. I need you to consider this for a second, because I don't know that people can wrap their head around this. Yes, there are elements of Bezos's money-making scheme that make money, Twitch being one of them, and Amazon Prime. But compared to Amazon as a service, it's dick. It's ridiculous. And he invests so much money in like trucks and stuff. I mean, how many have you seen like Amazon over the last 3 years, 2 years especially, but in last year there were a bunch of them, Amazon trucks showing up instead of just UPS guys, right? It used to be all your Amazon shit just showed up with a UPS driver, right? You'd wait for the UPS guy. That was normal for your Amazon packages. Now they got their own fucking trucks. They're buying their own trucks. They're hiring drivers. It's enormous. Yes, and their server systems, the electronic part of things. It's just the delivery system. It's not even the stuff itself. Look how rich Bezos is, and all he is the guy that goes, this thing over here, they want that. That's it. The vast majority of Amazon's money is made in just getting someone's goods to someone who wants them. There's some idea that like the stuff you buy on Amazon is in some fucking, that it's in Amazon's warehouses and therefore they own it. They're largely a drop shipping organization. They don't own the shit that's in their warehouses most of the time. It just sits there. They're basically, they globalized in some ways, or at least amongst the Western countries and certainly the North American countries, and especially the US and Canada. They expanded Walmart's business model of being where the shipping, start a store where the shipping people are and then sell the stuff that falls off the truck for cheaper, and then expand that into, we'll just buy some of our own and we won't have to pay the extra shipping because we don't have to pay the gas from our place to the next place. We are the place. And then we start being the place where all the trucks go to directly because they control the trucking. And Walmart decided they were going to have stores around this. Amazon doesn't even have to do that. It's all, they have warehouse systems, but they don't have to stock those with there's no storefronts for those fucking things. They don't need that shit. It's just delivery. Yeah, I use Amazon Fresh for groceries sometimes too. I buy a lot of stuff. I eat a lot of food that's at Whole Foods, for example, and they own it now. So you can get Whole Food delivery in that as well. Amazon is the Facebook of retail. It's an interesting way of looking at it. It's a good analogy. It's your content. You're getting your content to somebody else. And there are a myriad of Amazon millionaires and arguably billionaires that have nothing to do with Amazon as a company other than, them getting stuff there, like they're just the delivery system. I have a P.O. box. Yes, I do. It's on my website on the contact page. Go to houseparks.com and the contact page will show you where the address is. It's my my snail mail address. I mean, think about that. Think how rich he is, and all it is the delivery part of the stuff. Not the making of the stuff or the parts that make the stuff or the selling of the parts that makes the stuff that makes the bigger stuff that adds value that you can sell to somebody else. And the receiving of that person getting the stuff and willing to pay for it at a premium, both to get it early or get it cheaper by having it delivered to their home instead of them having to leave their home. Again, that's the weird kind of, gas money used to be spent going to the mall. A lot of people aren't doing that. They're only using it to go to work. So as gas prices go up, you're actually using gas less compared to what your old lifestyle was like pre-COVID. And Amazon's still not charging necessarily more for delivery in those circumstances. Some companies are jacking shit up just because they can. But this is a fascinating aspect of this. And already, 1 million toys from Amazon's list alone, and this is not an ad for Amazon, there's a myriad other ways of buying stuff, and Walmart has an enormous slice of the mail order business world. $1.3 trillion in holiday retail sales are projected in 2021, even with the supply chain issues. Think about that for a fucking second. $1.3 trillion just in Christmas sales, just in holiday sales. Up 7 to 9% from last year. He identified a market and is meeting demand. What the fuck is wrong with that? Yeah, I'm not sure what the big hang up about Bezos is, other than the idea that he doesn't pay enough in taxes personally. Because everybody uses the service. And it's not a zero-sum game. Dude started an online bookstore. For fuck's sake. We're not talking about the Sacklers in Purdue Pharmaceutical. Yes, exactly, V. Gabriel. $1.3 trillion just in holiday gifts this year. That's not even including food, people eating together for the first time in a year in some cases, right? Or maybe years more than that, maybe 3-4 years, and they decided, well, I used to blow off Christmas or holidays with the relatives, but now we recognize how precious it is. I'm not gonna miss any for a while. I don't think Amazon pays anything in taxes. They pay a lot in taxes. They just get money back because they invest in trucks and then they hire people and that kind of stuff. They pay based on profit. The idea is are they making actual profit? He pays income tax on his money for himself. He owns a stake in the company, but until he sells it, it's not worth shit. It could go away tomorrow. That's the way stocks work. Till you sell them, you don't pay capital gains on them, and that's where people are like fucking Zuckerberg lost $4 billion in a day, and then it came right back. Like, he didn't win or lose anything. The only reason he lost, the idea that he lost $4 billion in a day is if he sold, at the bottom of that. If he just sits on it and it goes back up, there you go. It's just an oversimplification. I mean, there's absolutely an argument for a higher tax rate on those folks. But the idea that companies don't pay any taxes, the biggest corporations don't pay any taxes, is largely a financial fallacy, because they play a lot of ancillary stuff, and they also run for years in some cases. Like, look at restaurants. They run for years making no money or in a hole. They're paying off their debts and all that kind of stuff. They don't really make a profit until they clear that point, right? Now, it's the magic numbers I have a problem with. Look at Trump's numbers. Trump always loses money. His company is always a loser, except when he talks about it in front of, his suckers, or in front of a bank he's trying to get a loan from. Talks to the IRS, his company's always losing money. And they're always losing. And there's never been a profit ever, which is largely true because he's a shitty businessman. But he's been able to work that system. I mean, largely you could argue that his business model is actually based on tax fraud, more so than creating any kind of services or anything. They get away paying less taxes because of loopholes. Well, those loopholes, you can argue which ones are valuable and which ones aren't. Sometimes, it's like sports teams. Like, I have a problem with cities paying for a giant stadium if their schools are suffering. But the idea is they're like, well, in 10 years, when this stuff starts working, we'll get more money from that, and we'll be able to, in 10 years, handle our schools. Right now, we have no way out of it, and this is a fix that will give us a plan, at least, for a way to solve it. And then they start, sometimes then the team moves and it siphons money out, and they built in this whole big fucking stadium, and it was a waste of taxpayer money. That's the argument. But in the cities where it works, that's how the whole thing starts. Jimmy Carter was rich from peanuts, but he gives back a lot different. Yeah, he's very different. But also the wealth he has from his peanuts is nowhere near like the job creator that Amazon would be, right? There's nowhere near as many employees by any stretch of the imagination. This isn't about defending that whole thing. It's just like talking realistically. What page do you have up there with all those stats? This is from The Week. This is their speed. Peter Weber posted this. So it's theweek.com. I'll post it after I get off the air. I've got to get off in a minute. Okay. The average consumer is expected to spend $785 just on the holiday season. $785, which means half of them are spending less than that, and half of them are paying a lot more. My point overall, there's two kind of here. One is that as much as everyone's wrenching their garments and saying inflation and it's terrible and the terribleness, the reality is it's still going to result in higher consumer output and people buying more shit and having more money in their pocket because as people buy more, the people who sell those things more have more money in their pocket and that kind of stuff. Even with supply chain issues, even with these supply chain issues, even with inflation, they're looking at a 7 to 9% rise in consumer spending in this Christmas holiday season. The Black Friday is going to be 7 to 9% higher than last year. Which is, again, like, when have you heard anything even remotely to that's going to be the case, especially from the right wing when they talk about the current state of the economy? If you listen to Glenn Beck or fucking Matt Gaetz yesterday, both of them were talking about the dollar is dead and our economy is destroyed, and none of that is even close to fucking true. Yeah. Yeah. We need to actively clean the environment and better educate our children. Agreed. The chat has left the building. Is everybody just kind of off in their own zone of things? Well, that's what, again, that's what happens when you kind of talk about like conventional wisdom jargon and the kind of knee-jerk conversation points that people get used to, and you kind of look at them from a different perspective. How Sparks, give and care for local business and those in need, like homeless people. Don't make Christmas only about gifts. I agree. That's the funny thing, Rebecca, is that the very people who have told us that you can't say Merry Christmas anymore and that Biden has a war on Christmas and Obama had a war on Christmas and the Democrats want a war on Christmas seem to be the people who want to make Christmas more about consumerism than anyone. Did Diamond and Silk find a pumpkin? No, but I almost took a picture. I was at the grocery store the other day, and the whole front of the building, and this is in Nevada, it was just pumpkins and I'm like, it's nice out right now. It's not hot, so they're not, spoiling or whatever. But there's a shit ton of everywhere. What they're talking about, of course, the shortage of pumpkins is the ones that they don't sell at a premium to people who want them for decoration or want to make stuff out of them in person. As what they're talking about is the canned commodity pumpkin for making canned pumpkin pie. It's actually cheaper to make currently, I think, or you're more available to just buy some pumpkins and make some fucking pumpkin pie yourself. Yeah, you got pumpkins everywhere here, right? But supposedly they're just gone, right? You need to get to the airport as your travel agent. Thank you, Donna. I'm going to wrap up, yes, because I've got to leave in about an hour and a half to go to the airport, and I got to jump in the shower. But here's the thing. you guys need to understand that the gloom and doom talk is an act of manipulation all the time. And you always have to just pace your response to it. Right? Because sometimes the right wing, especially when it comes to like economic stuff right now and inflation or the rise of China, even those two arguments, I mean, they're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They seem to be broadly across the entire spectrum, but they don't largely seem to be true, certainly not in any permanent sense. But both of these groups of people have a reason for making you afraid. This horrible downturn is coming and you've got to be prepared. And you can be prepared by being on our side. No, you can be prepared by being on our side. That kind of thing. Thanks, Carl. I'll be very careful. This is, all right, I'll get Chip. Hold on. Well, let me find him. Hold on one second. Let's see. Hold on. Where are we? Chip, where'd you go? Where are you, buddy? He might have gone upstairs. Where were you? Were you sleeping somewhere? Sorry, guys. Took me longer than usual. He went. I had to go find him. I did not leave. I had to go get Chip, and he was not to be found. He was passed out. Yeah, sleepy boy. He was having a nap, and then he heard me moving around, so he came out. Yeah, hi, buddy. He wears. Whenever I wear my Mr. Davenport bracelet, this guy right here, he always gnaws on it. He's so sleepy. Are you a sleepy boy? You sleepy boy? Were you sleepy? He was so sleepy. Here's what I want you to take away from the conversation today. Is that do not let yourself be led around by the nose by fear. Because I know. And also get a nap. Thank you. And don't forget to take a nap when you need one. That's the advice from Chip. And when you hear like a conventional wisdom on news programs, especially that sound particularly negative, it's okay to furrow your brow and go, all right, give me a second. And, if this is true? Is it acutely true to hear? Or is it true everywhere? And this is just something that we as humans are all dealing with at once. Is it something we are all having an experience of? He's eating my thumb. Why are you eating my thumb? Why are you chewing my thumb, Sleepy? Right? Oh, I will, moms. Can't Stop Lying is always great with the trolls. He's just laying here now. He just wants to doze off. The good news I was referencing was the fact that as much as everybody's telling you the supply chain's screwed and everything's awful, there's going to be just the holiday season alone is going to be up 7 to 9% over last year. And this seems to fly in the face of everything you're being told about the gloomy doomy news that you're hearing all the time. And anybody who's selling you the gloomy doomy, while there's some realistic stuff we're all going to have to deal with, the ones who want to paint it as the end of the world are the ones who are trying to manipulate you, always. Chip needs calcium, is that why he's chewing on me? Yeah. So I appreciate you guys being here. And, you know, we have these kind of softer conversations about stuff. I mean, this was a little more technical than it is normally in the morning. You know, because usually we go through like the trends on Twitter and seeing what's kind of trending on social media a little bit, just to have a conversation point in the morning. But I thought this was worth talking about because you're going to hear about the supply chain and inflation and then the dollar and the markets and all that kind of shit for the next few weeks. And it's almost everything you hear is going to be end of the world. You know, almost everything you're going to hear, especially from the right wing, because they need you to believe that because it's the only thing it can run on. They need you to believe that the problems we're having in the States right now are unique to America, don't happen anywhere else, and that other people would never try to solve their problems the way we're working on solutions. As a matter of fact, most of the Western world is kind of in line with how they're economically trying to solve the problems. There's some variance in philosophy, but the philosophy, they're not reinventing the wheel, right? But they are dealing with a situation, a monkey wrench that was thrown in on a global scale that's like incomparable to anything in the modern age, namely COVID. Yes, Biden is doing great. He's being a grown-up, and it's totally cool. And everybody was like, look at this, they're falling apart. The whole thing's falling apart. No, they're just wishing for the downfall of America just to prove a point. They are, they're the right-wing Susan Sarandons at this point. I talked to my dad. Oh, by the way, I did talk to my dad yesterday on FaceTime, during family FaceTime we have on Thursdays, and he looks great. He does not have a cough or anything like that. They're just they've had like fevers and a little bit just kind of slow, you know, feeling like my dad said, puny. They felt a little puny. His wife's a little behind him on the curve. She got it about, she tested positive 3 days after he did. So there's a window where she's just kind of behind him and going through it. But they both are holding their own. They're just staying home, quarantining, eating a lot of soup and relaxing with the dogs, and just resting. They just need to get a lot of rest. So thank you guys for asking. They're doing all right. Yeah. Yeah, the right-wing Susan Sarandon, because she wanted to burn everything down. She thought, if she was for Trump because he could destroy the entire system and teach everybody how we need to make it all better, right? It has to all go away. Anyways, much love to you guys. I will see you tomorrow on the radio, as I will be going right now to pack my bag and get ready to go to the airport. Take care, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye everybody. See you later. Oh wait, I've got to turn on the music this time. I forget because the music on this one is different. No, let's see. Let's go with this. Yeah, it's a good way to go out. That's right. The chip says bye. He's right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Yeah, don't forget to thumbs up before you head out. That would help. Okay, bye. And yes, I am streaming the show from Chicago tomorrow.
I like wood.
They just explode. The Burmese executives. So these Burmese, they say, pronounce it Burmese. Free healthcare for illegal. When they gaze upon Yosemite, action replays in magnified fortune. De-engineering. People want other people to stop shooting and knifing people to death. Sam was loaded up with blood. I don't read, obviously. We're going to be appointing very pro-crime judges. That's better than a brick because you can't throw a brick, it's too heavy. Michigan gave us Motan.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Yosemites. We're honored to have with us today our amazing Vice President Mike Pence and his wonderful wife Karen. People coming over with bags of soup.